So a month and a half ago, I put up a video saying that I was done with Samsung, and I have to feel sorry for them, to be honest. I mean, what became of the Galaxy Note 7 was nothing less than a complete disaster. Now, they're trying to rebound with the Samsung Galaxy S8, and supposedly next year there's going to be a Note 8. Now, before I get into the topic of this video, I want to say this. The Note 8, give it a different name, because I think otherwise you're going to risk a lot of sales, Samsung. Number two, take your time. Don't rush this. In that video, I also talked about some alternatives, and we're going to talk about one of those alternatives today in the video because I went to my local Best Buy yesterday, and I got to take a look at a couple of things. We're going to start off, though, with the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus, and there has been a whole barrage of press on it. I've given my initial thoughts on it, but I hadn't seen one in person up until yesterday. And honestly, I was underwhelmed. I saw a jet black iPhone 7 and a matte black 7 Plus. The jet black was a fingerprint oil magnet. The matte black, I mean, aside from the camera hump, it had the exact same feel as the older iPhones. In fact, tactily speaking, for anybody out there who prefers to go by feel or has to, due to blindness, the only way that you can tell an iPhone 7 or 7 Plus from its predecessors are by two things. Number one, the bigger camera bump in the upper left-hand corner of the back. And number two, the absence of the headphone jack on the bottom left. If you were not actively looking for those, you could easily mistake an iPhone 7 for an iPhone 6 and their Plus variants. The speakers were not too bad, although it was pretty noisy, so I had a hard time really getting a sense of what they really sounded like. iOS is it's meh. Now, let me explain something. For those of you who have been subscribers of mine for a while, you probably know that a couple of years ago, I had an Android device. It was my first Android device. It was a Samsung. The device had gotten so bad, so sluggish in the software department that it was unusable. And I require a smartphone to manage my transportation, to manage my assignments, to manage communications with friends. But the big one is transportation. I cannot have a phone that goes out on me in the middle of a negotiation with either paratransit, with Uber, with a relative, with whoever is driving me around, because otherwise I'd be stuck. Okay, and that's not something I cannot risk. It is for that reason that I picked up the iPhone 6 Plus. It wasn't necessarily because I necessarily grew tired of Android, because ever since I picked up the iPhone, I did take a closer look at Android. I've got a cheap Android tablet with a near stock experience, and to be honest, the thing is not half bad. I am more than willing to give Android another try. But what I was looking at that time was I needed something reliable, something that wasn't going to brick, and that was the iPhone. Just by the way Apple designs things at the time, and we're talking 2014, before contracts went bye-bye, I needed something reliable, and I needed something, like, quick. So, that's why I went with the iPhone. However, you fast forward 2 years, and okay, here's the deal. like I told you, iPhone 7. I'm very underwhelmed. iOS is meh. And on my current device, what's going on is Skype and Facebook Messenger and whatever them all is, they have been redesigned. Not that a redesign is necessarily bad, it's just annoying. And how is it annoying? Well, for those of you who do not know, when somebody calls on Facebook or Skype, or heck, it could even be Line or WhatsApp or whatever. I haven't tried those, but I do know this happens with Facebook and with Skype. And what happens is when a call comes in, it behaves like a phone call. Why is that annoying? Well, unfortunately, and for those of you who are my friends who talk to me on Skype, please understand this is none of your faults. This has everything to do with Apple, okay? This has everything to do with Apple, and in this case of Skype, Microsoft, and in the case of Facebook Messenger, Facebook. Although I think they were both using something that Apple had cooked up because they both behave the same way. And that is, like I said, call comes in, they behave like a phone call. Even on speaker, I have to get in pretty close to see my phone. And my hair is so thick that it always blocks the proximity sensor. And some of you are saying, well, go to magnification. Compared to Google's Android, iOS's magnification is a joke. And we'll get to that in a little bit when we talk about the other thing that I saw. But that, along with another thing, like let's say I get a notification in messages. Well, I want to reply to it, right? I have to literally count to 5 because I hit the reply and it brings up a typing window. But I can't start typing yet. For iMessage specifically, it brings up a secondary typing window that is unique to iMessage. If I start typing too soon, then the whole business goes away, and rather than continuing to watch the YouTube video I'm watching after having replied to somebody's comment, I have to get out of YouTube, go to iMessage, and reply. Excuse me. And that's just something that really drives me nuts. The only other real complaint that I have, and I think this might be due to the age of the hardware, is certain apps are taking a lot longer to load. So yeah, iOS is meh. Now, in terms of speed and performance, on the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus, it's miles ahead, but you would expect that for brand new hardware. But at the same time, like I said, we'll get into the customization aspect a little later on, and you'll see what I'm talking about when I say iOS equals meh. I already mentioned that the jet black is the world's worst oil magnet. I didn't even have to touch the back. I just turned the thing over, and this was a Best Buy demo unit. The thing was covered in smudges. Yeah. And the really interesting thing is, people are going to say, well, why don't you put a case on it? Doesn't that detract from the overall reason why the jet black would have been bought in the first place? Force touch home button. That was odd. I agree with a lot of other journalists. It's like the whole bottom of the phone vibrates. It's weird. So, about a month ago, I put up a video and I mentioned several other phones that could replace the Galaxy Note 7. One of which was in my book, the Moto Z series. And I got a chance to take a look at the Z series yesterday for the first time. This one is the Z Play. If I do get a Z series, this will be it. But I do think I have decided on this device because $400 unlocked and on contract, if we're able to keep it, $100 for a really, honestly, I like the device. The earpiece speaker was totally awesome. The display on the thing was just way cool. And I like this widget that Motorola put in the center here. On the left-hand side is your temperature. On the right-hand side is your battery. And on the center is your clock. So I think that's really useful. But also on top of that, we talked about Android flexibility. In my case, I am able to do a lot more customizing. I find the magnification easier to use, but on top of that, I can take a custom application suite such as Claria Zoom, throw that on top of the standard Android interface, and replace these icons with large print, speech, and all the software that I'm going to need, such as a magnifier, OCR reader, and so on, without very much money. I mean, it's $3 a month for continued service, and with a phone that costs $100 on contract. Now, I must stress that I'm specifically speaking to those people who have some usable vision. If you don't have enough usable vision to effectively use large print, then I would recommend sticking to iOS. Now, we talked about Android flexibility. All right, let's stick to that for a moment. The other thing is, you got things like widgets and live wallpapers and just wonderful. Like on my cheap tablet, on my little chewy tablet, I've got widgets that allow me to take a look at a glance at my email inbox. Being able to have a clean home screen, or maybe like if I have an order on Amazon, being able to view that without going into the app. Now iOS has something similar, but I don't think it's quite as full featured, to be honest. And the other interesting thing is the little notification light. And this is going to sound so strange, but I miss that thing. I miss that from my Galaxy Note 2. I honestly do, because being able to just take a look down at the phone and watch for a blinking red or a blinking blue or blinking green to tell me if that I have a notification, especially if I'm waking up in the middle of the night. Rather than having to switch on the display. I mean, that's wonderful. In Motorola's case, you've got a near stock Android experience. Not too much has been added on. I did find a Motorola privacy thing, and that I thought was a little bit confusing. Other than that, let's see, it was Motorola privacy, and there was something else that I can't remember that I found in there, in the settings. I can't remember. Other than that, and some obvious Verizon bloatware, which, to be honest, I might find more use out of it. The only app that I know that I will never use, because I'm not a sports type person, is the NFL mobile app. That I definitely will disable out of the box. The other really cool thing, though, is, speaking of that in terms of storage, is the fact that Motorola has done a wonderful job optimizing the software, in that out of 32 gigs, you get 24 free. Versus my old Note 2, I had 16 and I got 8. You know? Which would you rather have? And also, considering that most of my music these days is streamed over Amazon, I don't need to worry so much about space. So, near stock Android. The build quality of the phone, I think, was top-notch. Now, I did not take a look at the Moto Z Play itself or the Force. I saw the Moto Z, and to me, the Z was too thin. I think you would need at least one kind of Moto Mod, whether it be the skin or whatever you want, just to make the phone grippable. But I do think that with the Play and with the mods that I am planned to get, I think that that's going to be rectified. So let's get to those mods. Very first mod that I played with was the JBL Speaker. Insane. Absolutely insane. Now, I was just running a TTS demo just to check and see what the difference was between the internal speaker and the JBL speaker. So I turned the volume up to 3/4, roughly 75%, to be able to hear the speaker, the phone speaker, right? So I tried on the phone speaker. I slap on the JBL speaker mod, hit the button again to do this TTS demo, and it was so loud that I was worried I was going to get kicked out of the store. I immediately turned it down. I was like, whoa, And that's coming out of this tiny little thing. Just incredible. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, you have an Amazon Tap, why not just use that? Because, especially if you're out and about and you're in a loud environment, sometimes those little phone speakers can't really do you justice. And a lot of people are thinking, we'll just use headphones. To quote, Jeff Bezos, who quoted another individual, and unfortunately I don't remember his name. We'll just say unknown. If you go watch his video for the Fire Phone presentation, you'll understand what I'm going to do. But basically, what was said was the easiest way to get your earphones tangled: put headphones in pocket and wait 1 minute. And for me, that is especially true. I am an absolute klutz when it comes to that sort of thing. So, also, the other thing that I loved about this was the stand. You know, being able to prop the phone up on a stand on a table to watch the PBS NewsHour or something on YouTube. Just wonderful. The stand felt very solid, metallic, had just enough force to not feel cheap, had a very solid click on both ends. It was awesome. I loved it. I also mentioned in my prior video about the Hasselblad Mod, the camera. I tried that too. That one was a bit hard because the phone was on one side of the display and the camera was on the other. And I had to figure out how to get them attached without necessarily setting off the alarm. But I did get it connected, and I don't know. I mean, it's nice. It's for what it is, and what it essentially is doing is it's turning your phone into a conventional point and shoot. Number one, I don't think it should have the Hasselblad name on it. I think they should have contracted with somebody like Nokia or Canon or someone like that, somebody more mainstream. Because for those of you who do not know, Hasselblad primarily manufactures cameras for the wealthy elite. For instance, they took an Alpha A7 that cost $1,000, slapped some wood and some other tinsel or whatever they do on it, and jacked up the price tenfold. Okay, that's the kind of market they play to. So, in terms of it being a Hasselblad, $200 is literally nothing. But for what it is, I thought it was too expensive. I don't think it's worth it. Now, that's not to say it's not bad. I mean, I thought it took a pretty decent picture. The flash is certainly bright enough. The zoom was just, I love the zoom. But at the same time, you have to weigh the pros and cons, and I think that for the price, you could do better. I hope that something similar to this comes out only cheaper. The other mod that I had the opportunity to try was that Projector. And in the last video, I wasn't sure how it was going to fare, because, I mean, look at the thing. It's tiny. But for what it is, it actually managed to pump out a surprisingly good picture. I was honestly surprised. And this was against a glare-ridden display ad for the hardware that was in front of me. And I could still make out the background, I could make out the clock widget, I could make out the widgets, I could make out the app icons, particularly Google Play. That one stood out pretty well, so I could see it. And after today, I have to wonder, because you couldn't get it back enough to really get a good picture. But I think that this is a lot more capable. Now, a lot of people are thinking, well, couldn't you just hook it up to an external projector? Here's what I'm thinking about for this. If I ever decided to go ahead and do this, and I stress that if, because it's $300, if I ever decided to go ahead and do this, what I'd probably do is set it on a table with a blank wall in front, or a screen, hook up a Bluetooth keyboard and mouse to the phone, and use the projector as sort of a wireless HDMI or wireless Miracast, what have you. And the really cool thing about doing it that way versus having to do it over, say, a Wi-Fi or Bluetooth connection to a TV, battery. I would think that you would be able to save at least a little bit of battery life. But just the idea of being able to project a bigger screen wherever you are, that's the other thing, is I could be working, there could be a wall in front of me, I decided, hey, I want a bigger screen. I could just turn this on and there you have it. Now, I must stress that I've only played with these for just a few minutes, each of these, for literally just a few minutes. So I don't have enough information to make a full-on conclusion, okay? So my first impressions are actually not half bad. There is one mod that I didn't get around to seeing, and that is the Incipio Battery mod. My guess is somebody made off with it because there was a blank panel there in between the phone and the camera, right above the projector. So I suspect that's where the battery sat. And you're probably thinking, well, it's just a battery. You know what that does. You plug it in, you get more juice, right? I understand that. But here's the thing. The black one looked like it was going to be pretty slippery, and I wanted to check and see if that was the case, and especially because I want to get the white one to match, because I would get the white Moto Z Play. I just want to see if that gives me any more of a grip, because one of the problems I'm having with my last two phones has been slipperiness. So I need something that I could easily grip without making it overly bulky. But honestly, if I had to compare the iPhone 7 Plus to the Moto Z series, I would say get the Moto Z series unless you're really die-hard set on iOS. But so yeah, what do you guys think? Thank you for watching. Comments are welcome, and have a nice day.